Thank you for staying tuned. It is still the conversation here on Lagos Television, and we are discussing Lagos, Africa's mega city state. And as the topic implies, Lagos is often described as Africa's mega city. It is a center of commerce, innovation, culture, and opportunities. Yet, with rapid population growth, there are infrastructure demands, housing challenges, transportation pressures, and environmental concerns. Now, with all these concerns that I have raised in my introduction, how is Lagos keeping pace with its ambition? Now, to give answers to these questions, we are joined by policy development strategist. He's also the friend of the house, Jeff Adebowale. You're welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me once again.
It's always a delight to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, so I raised the question in my intro with the concerns that I have raised, and Lagos is referred to as Africa's megacity state now. So, in your own opinion, how is Lagos keeping up with this title?
Oh, well, how is Lagos keeping up? Well, we've done fairly okay. Of course, we still have a lot of things to deal with. If you talk about waste management, for example, we still have a lot of waste generation, and we're not managing waste as much as we should. Of course, like I said on this platform, I had written a paper before at the start of this administration, actually, for us to take the waste into the third phase of waste to energy. And that is yet to be fully implemented, so that we don't have just waste being piled up. But of course, we've done a bit from that side of from the home side where waste is being generated, but we still need to do better with waste sorting, and of course a lot of communication, reorientation needs to happen in that regard. Sadly to say, when it comes to traffic, I'm almost at the point of even blaming LASMA for causing most of the traffic you see in Lagos today, because if you go to the major hubs, you will find out that you have LASMA officials there, and then there's still traffic. So the question is, why is there still so much traffic?
Sometimes it's people problem. People are not patient. Everyone is on the move.
Well, again, LASMA is also people. I mean, every LASMA officer is a person. And it's always all encompassing. And that's why I said that, I mean, if the enforcement from LASMA's end is very tough, most especially both on the operators, the drivers, and even the passengers. So LASMA should do a little bit more better, not just only in the management of the route and just ensuring buses are parked at the bus stop, but also enforce passengers not standing at the wrong place. Because of course, if you see a passenger standing at the wrong side of the road trying to get into a bus, there's definitely going to be the temptation for buses to want to park to pick passengers. So again, we need to manage that end to end. And of course, we need to the sad part of the issue with Lamata was the NSAS, time where buses were being burnt. I'm not sure a lot of those buses are being replaced yet. I know that Lamata is trying to do a lot of engaging a lot of private sector to bring in buses to manage, route. I don't know whether British or American English. And I think that we still have a lot of deficits in there that gives room for the informal side of the conversation, the yellow buses, and of course makes it a lot more difficult, for movement of people. And when that becomes a thing, and with the traffic, with the much that the state is trying to do with road infrastructure at the state level, then you will still have movement of people. And so Lagos is becoming bigger on a daily basis, arguably about 20 to 21 million people. And more people are still coming in, and so that is still a bit of a pressure. Housing, housing deficit in Lagos still remains very large. And then when you look at what Lagos is trying to do to manage rental rate and surges and all of that, then yes, the state is trying. I mean, so many other areas, but of course, when it comes to the commerce, you come to banking, you come to innovation, creativity, and all of that, you see that Lagos is really doing very well. But of course, there's still the flip side of still being able to manage and help to grow some part of you know, security and all those other areas, so that it then becomes, Lagos then really become a mega city, because Lagos is arguably the only city, I mean, it's not just a city-state, but the only city-state that has more or less become an experimental center for the height of commerce that can happen in Africa. The GDP of Lagos is well over $100 billion. In 2024, the report says that Lagos generated internal revenue of over $1 trillion. And so you can imagine what can then happen if you then put all of these other things in place and then try to work with other adjoining states, most especially Ogun State, to handle some of the pressure of the city center. Then, I mean, we can see a quick jump in the economy of Lagos State.
Absolutely. You talked about innovation. So let's talk about the Invest 3.0 summit that was held here in Lagos recently of this week. So the the summit rather, attracted local and international stakeholders to discuss investment opportunities in the state. And for you, who is a policy development strategist now, how critical is it for the state to ensure that there are sustained investments and, of course, put Lagos as a global competitive megacity?
I mean, it's 1,000%, you know, very important for Lagos to sustain the inflow of investment into Lagos. And of course, this is a 3.0. My view is that every year we should continue to have such investment summit that allows for a sort of a measure of a current position every year. Of course, we have the 30-year plan, 50-year long-term plan. We have the mid-term, we have the short-term plan for, of course, development of Lagos. And so what we must learn to do is that every year, from every version of the summit, we're measuring progress, and then we're bringing to the limelight what are the learning curves, what are the things that we need to do better. Because, of course, nobody anticipated the global happenings when it comes to what's going on with the Middle East and the US and Israel. But, of course, Nigeria, as much as Lagos, being the sort of the state that holds the largest percentage of the contribution to the GDP of the nation, as much as also engage most of Nigerians, we must continue to have such summits that discuss, you know, global happenings, how it affects Nigeria, how it affects Lagos, but of course how it affects Africa. I mean, you know, it's also important to look at that and then see how we can look at how Africa can trade within itself, you know, picking the West, Lagos being the hub, picking South Africa, picking the North, I think that would be Egypt, picking the East, probably Nairobi, and then looking at how, and then Central, maybe Congo, and then see how we can sort of harmonize trade within, but then, of course, for Lagos, how we can sort of ensure that every year we measure our growth and we measure, okay, what's the next 365 days, what do we require in Lagos to be able to not just only make Lagos a mega city, but of course the commerce of Africa, you know, arguably the best, you know, city center where we can say we need to bring Africa to where it should be. Africa is not a third world continent. Like I always will say, it's almost like irony metaphor. I'm not an English expert, but you know, Africa is the richest continent, yet the poorest. So it's a similarity of what you find in Nigeria. Nigeria has the great potential, so rich a nation, but of course we know how we're being termed. So with such kind of conversation helps us to bring to the limelight who we really are, human resources, mineral resources, what is the capacity, and how do we harness within and trade within and then build capacity from within to actually reach our full potential.
And you know, what you just said also corroborates with the theme for the summit, Lagos, the business gateway to Africa. And one of the things that Mr. Governor said at that summit, he said the agreement signed at the summit, and I'm quoting him now, he says, these are not ceremonial documents, they are instruments of execution. The investment architecture we are building is designed to endure beyond any administration. And I found that very interesting for me because, again, these are investments that he has said that would endure beyond an administration. It's not going to be tied around a personality.
Absolutely.
And for you, again, what investment or what infrastructure investment do you think that Lagos should prioritize to support its growing population? Okay,
I'll pick those three key areas as immediate. And those three key areas will be, of course, housing, to be able to ensure that we meet the housing deficit and turn Lagos around from being an horizontal city to a vertical city. And
Sorry.
Then, yeah.
Go back again.
Okay.
Turning Lagos.
Turning Lagos away from being a horizontal city into a vertical city.
You're going to explain that.
Okay, so that what that means is we turn the landscape of Lagos around. Instead of spreading horizontally and having bungalows and maybe a story buildings and all of that, we go vertical. We do multiple floors.
Oh, okay.
So of course, if you have a standard plot in Lagos, for example, should be about 620 square meters. Right. So what you can build on that, if you're just doing a family house, you probably build a duplex for yourself. But of course, you could go higher and go more floors and have more families live within the same
small piece of land.
And so you can achieve more square meters going vertical rather than going horizontal.
Okay.
So, so we need to change the landscape and do urban renewal. And if I may, you know, my hope is that one day I will take up the executive role of being the governor of Lagos State. This will be what I would do, and turn around, you know, Lagos and change the landscape and go higher and go multiple floors and have more families being able to live on a piece of land by going further up. So if we're able to do that, we can mitigate the housing deficit, and we need to speed up that conversation. And there are other technologies that we can use to go vertical and be able to achieve more families per square meters, and then also at a reduced cost that is affordable. And affordable doesn't mean cheap, but affordable meaning something that is a regular civil servant who is earning minimum wage can still live within Lagos, but not necessarily in the city center.
So?
Not necessarily the city center,
okay.
but of course can still live in Lagos. However, like I said earlier, if we have a proper arrangement with the likes of Ogun State, and then you look at the outskirts of Lagos, then you can have more people live there, right? And then what you then have, which is the second phase, is now the transportation logistics. We need more trains, more metros. And of course, just like Dubai, we don't need to dig the ground. We don't need to do like London and have underground trains. I mean, we need more surface trains, more overhead trains, so that, you know, the city is already built up, but we can do more overhead trains, like we already have the blue rail. So we can do more of that and have the red and have the green and have multiple trains.
The red
Yes, is functioning. So we need to do more. That's what I mean by we need to and in doing more, of course, the red is functional, but one of the things you will find out, because it's surface, you have a bit of some sort of human engagement along the tracks that makes it a little bit unsafe. For example, if you get towards the Ilupeju to Mushi, that sort of interchange, people still have to drive across the train to be able to get across, and that's not being safe. If you get to Oshodi, for example, you have the whole, you know, human engagement at Oshodi along the track. You know, so we need to mitigate that and go, you know, above ground, so that the train can function, a smart train that can function across the city, and then people can get off the train and then, you know, engage the land. So we need more of that. And of course, like I said earlier, we need to bring more buses in and replace the lost buses, you know, to Lamata, so that we can have more e-vehicles, EVs, e-buses, to ensure that Lagos can reduce the carbon footprint, and then we will earn from carbon credit if we do more of that. So there's a way to sort of engineer financing around that. Of course, CNG buses and all of that. So we need to bring more of those so that we can move people. And LASMA needs to do better. Of course, we need to have more infrastructure for buses, and then try to push back a bit from, encroachment into the highway, so allow free flow of movement, for people, so that we don't waste energy and, waste time being on the road. And then, of course, the final point, the moment we do all of those, Lagos moves away from 21 million, arguably between 17 to 21 million people, maybe upwards of 30 to 50 million. Then we would have to produce more waste. So then, are we ready for more waste? That's the third level of what should we be doing. Olusosun, for me, right now, should discontinue. We should discontinue Olusosun, because it's already literally almost in the city center now. And the waste is piling up even much more. Driving past that, no matter how good your AC of your car is, there's no way you would not know you're passing by Olusosun. So we need to then look on the outskirts of town, have material recovery centers or some sort of transloading centers to be able to take in waste and then take that to the outskirts of town for processing. I mean, we can do waste to energy, waste to wealth is what I call that strategy. I know China is buying waste, interestingly enough. So instead of just amounting all of this waste and keeping them here in Nigeria, we can as well sell them, to China, since they are looking for waste to buy. So if China has many power stations that are using waste to generate energy and they are looking for waste to buy them, we can sell waste to them. If not, can we then bring such, waste, turbines or stations that can help to generate, power from waste? Then we can bring, have some sort of partnership or arrangement to be able to use the landfills instead of having landfills, but rather stations where we can turn waste into energy. And that would be my immediate sort of conversations for what we can do in Lagos.
These sectors that you just highlighted, housing, transportation, and waste management, are critical sectors in the state. Also, still talking about the summit now, it also highlighted technology, creativity, and talent development, which is the creative industry, which is one that is on the front burner right now. And so again, how can Lagos leverage these sectors to create job and strengthen its position as Africa's leading economic hub?
Fantastic. We just need to turn Yaba into the next Silicon Valley of Africa. Because whether you like it or not, Yaba is the hub of education currently. Yaba is also like the hub of technology. Most of the tech guys are in Yaba. So all we just need to do is intelligently turn Yaba into the next Silicon Valley. And if we can do that as a state, then what we'll then do is just like, Computer Village in Ikeja, we can move it away. Which I think Lagos is already in that process. But I will not move it further away from Yaba. I would rather move it to Yaba, so that everything technology, like I said, the Silicon Valley will bring everything to Yaba, and then take out elements that are not necessarily to be in Yaba out of there. So maybe, for example, we want to move a Computer Village to Tejo Market and move Tejo Market and the trade that happens there somewhere else, so that that particular place can become the tech hub, and everybody who is in Yaba and wants to do everything around technology can be within that same space. And housing development can be developed for that same market, and all the other auxiliary services can be there, because you already have Yaba Tech, Unilag, and most of the higher institutions are there. And so we can do that to achieve that particular conversation. And maybe turn Lekki, for example, into the entertainment creative hub, because that's where you have most of the guys anyway. The likes of Burna Boy, Davido, and all of that leaves whether Banana Island or Lekki and in that axis. So clearly, we just need to be intelligent as to how we look at the creativity, all the different segments of creativity, and then I just remembered something now. Somewhere around the Lekki toll gate, I think there is an arena coming up there now. I saw a video of an arena that is supposed to house, I think about, is it 5,000 or so for events, instead of people going to a hotel and all of that. So, that's, again, like I said, it's about how we intelligently look at the city and cluster this kind of conversations, so that anybody who is going to the creative environment, whether you're going into technology, in Yaba, if you're going into entertainment, and there in Lekki, Koyi axis, and all of that. And if we're talking about, you know, agri-technology and, you know, agriculture and food up, then you're talking Ekwe down into Ikorodu, you know, that axis, because we still have land. Instead of all of the land, which I discussed here before, instead of all of the land being just allocated for estates and, you know, we can intelligently look at those things. Itoki is there where you have the rice field and it's wasting away because nothing is happening there. Meanwhile, we have in my hometown, Imota, the rice mill.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I've discussed, we're still waiting for, you know, paddy to come from the middle belt before we can process here. But we have Itoki, so if you can, you know, expand the conversation that you're talking into K2 Ekwe side, or K2, not the K2 at Ojota side here, Koshofe. If we can expand the rice field there, we can then say we have back-end integration into the mill. So we would know that our rice mill will continue to function because, hey, we can say we have 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 hectares of rice plantation in Lagos that can feed the mill. And if that is not enough, then we can buy from outside rather than we're dependent on other state producing for Lagos. I mean, these are some of the things that we must look into as we proceed.
Still talking about entertainment and selling Lagos best to the world. Here in Lagos, we have the 30 December has become a thingy, and in the last 2 years, you had a lot of internationals coming into Lagos. So what's 30 December? They want to know what is happening. You have a lot of concerts, fiestas going on around December. And so again, you know, linking it with tourism, how best here can Lagos still push further?
Okay, so in my research, the last 2 to 3 years, the Dirty December is arguably over $10 billion in conversation. If we harness it properly as a state, we can push it up even further. Yes, the point of contact will always be the point of security, and then whether we like it or not, Lagos in quote already is congested, right, as it were, because we have a lot of deficit. But one of the things you would discover very quickly is that the reason why people stay out of Lagos for that period is because they find it difficult to find accommodation during the period that they will come. So you would see that some people live a bit on the outskirts of Lagos, especially those who have their origin from Oyo, from Ibadan, for example. They would come and stay in Ibadan, but would come to Lagos just to come and, in quote, have fun, enjoy themselves, you know, within a 2-3 day window. And you will find most of the hotels and short-let apartments fully booked, and there is still more demand. And one of the things that I saw in my research for the last 3 years is that most of the short-lets, I think there was a year they lost a lot of money because many people will use their card to pay. Only after coming to stay in the hotel for 1 week and all that, going back, they cancelled. So most of the short-let lost a lot of money. Of course, this wasn't, you know, probably, I mean, a lot of people lost money based on our research. So if Lagos coordinates this properly, we'll discover that there will be a lot of inflow of cash that will come in because a lot of Nigerians will come, they have places to stay, they're not worried about traffic. I was discussing with a friend, I think sometime in February, we're planning a program, something, you know, around Dirty December. But we said instead of just waiting till December, we can have on a quarterly basis some sort of engagement that brings people from diaspora to come home and have fun. And so we were discussing it. And I said, well, we can put up something at the National Theatre. The National Theatre is now so fantastic, well done. And she was like, no, she still wants something to be done on the island because she doesn't want to bring people to the mainland. So you can understand that when everybody comes to town for Dirty December or any sort of let's come home to come and, you know, have, you know, some time with family every year, they're always concentrated on the Lagos Island, on the island side, rather than on the mainland. So if we're able to ensure that we put all this infrastructure in place and the state coordinates the conversation properly, we will discover that it won't be difficult for people to possibly still live somewhere around Bagada and be able to get onto the island, maybe to a hotel or Federal Palace or any of those other venues for for event or national theatre, because all they need to do is get out of Bagada, for example, and get on Third Mainland because there's no traffic. And if they're coming back, they will come back, no traffic, and they're safe. Rather than they're worried that they want to be close to where they want to have events, you know, and then there are no events happening on the mainland majorly. Those times, usually, there are almost no events happening on the mainland. Everything happens on the island. So, I mean, those are the things that we must, you know, learn to put in place so that we can earn more and, of course, let everybody experience Lagos.
Yeah. Like it or not, this is our reality now. The issue of insecurity that is plaguing us as a nation. I'd like you to look at how this will impact on investment, and how also the effect it will have on investor interest.
Yes.
And of course, again, as I said, we need tangible benefits or tangible things that we can hold on to that will impact on residents and businesses here in Lagos. But let's look at it overall, how the insecurity status will hamper investments.
So I have a personal experience. 2 years ago, I was opportunity to raise about 200 million for a state up north. The reason why the fund was going to come, however, the state didn't engage it fully. The reason why it was going to come was because the state was fairly safer than other states up north. The next year, we pushed up the fund to about 300 million. We got approval. But then the issue of insecurity started to show up even in the state. And it made the investors to be a bit jilty about putting in money. Of course, when it came to conversations around Lagos, we didn't necessarily engage Lagos state government as a company, my company, because we know that the state, you know, had a lot of IGR and also had opportunity to get foreign investment. But in conversations so far to private sectors in Lagos, what I know is that many of the investors who are willing to come are still, they will invest, but they will invest through an established company in Lagos, and they will not want to bring their investment because of the risk of insecurity. They will rather invest through an established company in Lagos and put in their funds there. And if anything happens, they know they will hold that company to pay them back, rather than them coming themselves to come and invest, you know, in Lagos. So yes, with now that is it sometime this week? Yeah, today is Thursday. Yeah, I think there was an incident that happened in Ogun State, very close to Mowe, this week. I think there was another conversation around Otta. I mean, so the moment you continue to have such incidences and it's almost coming close and now becoming too close, I am already suspecting that there will be a bit of fears as to what is possible and what can happen in Lagos in another few months if we're not careful about the issue of insecurity. So this is for me now to further lend my voice to the presidency to do better with what they're doing. I'm not saying they're not doing enough, but they need to do better, as much as we then need to look for how then do we solve community policing. I know that there's conversation around state policing, but of course the state needs to do a little bit more, and all the states needs to do a little bit more about community policing before, of course, we get to the point of the state police and all of that. Yeah.
Okay, as we wrap up this conversation, as a policy development strategist, again, when you look at Lagos and the future of Lagos, what excites you the most?
The interesting thing is that I am a full-blown Lagosian, born and bred in Lagos. I'm a royal here in Lagos, so though not from the Lagos Island side, I'm part of the Jebusa, like I said, in Mota. And so every time I don't see Lagos as a state, and a piece of land as just another piece of land and people just engaging. But rather I look at the ancestry part of Lagos. I look at the history of how sometimes if you don't look backwards, you can't really be certain about where you're headed. And of course, that we are the real chosen people that have been anointed by God, and this is a land that is flowing with milk and honey. And so with that understanding, I know that we're far away from what we're supposed to be enjoying as a people. And so my own focus is always that there's more that we can do for ourselves as a people. There's more that we can do for ourselves as a state and of course as a nation. And so for me I'm clamoring for young people to actually stand up and do better by engaging positively. I know we've had the conversations around young people engaging with wrong things, you know, whether with drugs or with frauds and all of that. But if young people who are in Lagos can put their hands together and engage actively and positively, we would move this economy even bigger, and then it will definitely affect Nigeria as a nation.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff Adebowale, for sharing insights on the realities, challenges and opportunities that define Lagos as Africa's mega city. Thank you again for your time on the conversation. We've been talking Lagos, Africa's mega city state. The conversation continues. Stay with us.
I went to Lagos Island before to go and buy dress for my children for Christmas. I put on Iro and Buba, then the tie. I didn't tie it on my head. I tied the money there. These Yao boys, we are going, me and my second. So they call her, come auntie, come and see Ankara. And that Ankara is this carton. They only use 1 yard to wrap the Ankara. But me, I've noticed it, she did not know. Then I now draw her, let's go, Jare. The guy saw me when I draw her. So the guy just faced me and draw that my tie. God so kind, the place I put money is in my side. The other side is drawing, there is no money there. So I drag the thing with him, because if he collect that money, my husband will do me shege when I show. So me too, on top of that Idumota bridge, me too, I deal with him. He drag it, I drag it with him.
The conversation. Let the conversation continue.
A lot of things have been said on the show today from my side here, talking about Lagos, Africa's mega city state, and our guest talked about things that, or sectors that should be focused on. He mentioned housing, transportation, waste management, and over there on the other side with Adebowale, they talked about accountability, political office holders. You know what? In summary, all I would just say is that this journey continues, and whatever choices you make today will shape your tomorrow. So make the right choices.
Okay, almost everything has been said. There's no state that can be compared to Lagos. And of course, you can see the intentionality on the part of those who have led Lagos and those who are still leading Lagos as of today. And of course, that's why Lagos continues to be the reference point for good governance, rather, and the benchmark for development. We have seen states come here to copy what we are doing in Lagos State. So Lagos is quite fortunate, and that's why it will continue to remain the center of excellence. That's our package today. We thank you very much for watching. 10 a.m. tomorrow, TGIV edition of The Conversation will be live here on Lagos Television. I am Adebowale. Thanks for watching the show.
Now I am Joy Olu. Enjoy your day.